work of redemption all the way through the early church and monasticism, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, the Reformation, and Counter-Reformation times into our own age. That's our church. And we are part of this big historical body that is also something that transcends time. But we do kind of cue in, importantly, to how history does change. There are things that never change, and especially Jesus Christ, who is the same yesterday, today, and forever. But on the march through history, things do change. There is flux, and it's always unsettling. And we are going through, again, a change of ages in our own time. And I think COVID accelerated that. It can be very disorienting for a lot of people, and I think that's why a lot of folks are still kind of dealing with, what do I do? Some are diving into kind of isolation, whether it's entertainment and media, just kind of shutting off from neighbors or work, and others are trying to find some new way of interacting with the world and with their neighbors. I know a lot of professions have been sort of stretched very thin. And if you've seen a doctor lately, they've probably not been the cheeriest of people, because our medical professionals are a good example of ones who have really been pushed to the brink. And this is something that is not unusual, but especially it's highlighted in this time where we're trying to get back to life as normal, and yet there hasn't really been a processing or a grieving, if you will, of the strange changes that have happened. And again, that disorienting feeling can really make us feel unsettled. A lot of folks are still dealing with various forms of depression. It may not be clinical depression, but there is lingering anxiety and a sense of sort of, again, disoriented darkness that has really affected people in their lives, and it's very widespread. Some people are really just trying to plug along and put on a good face, but from, again, my pastoral perspective, engaging with a lot of people in this circumstance, it's very widespread. If that's anybody here, anybody watching, please, acknowledge this. This is okay to feel. It really is okay to kind of not be okay with all the weird things that have gone on, So I think we have a bit of a road ahead of us to try to come to understand what this looks like going forward. But I want to offer a few, I suppose, points of reference in both the form of challenges and opportunities that face us as a church in particular in this great cultural shift and upheaval that's going on. The church is meant to be a stable place, a place of refuge, that people can come to and encounter God and find life in Him. And it's a place from which Christians are meant to go out into the world to engage them in their need, in their hurt, and say, hey, come in and see. I've got a safe place for you to come home to. And that doesn't change. That is always going to be a part of our mission, because the church is an extension of Jesus Himself in the world throughout history. But we, as a parish in the church as a whole, will always be meeting with changing circumstances and habits and trends of people. And some of those common challenges that we face are things like the great mobility of the modern person, the modern family, couple, or individual. People are very much on the go. And even as things kind of toned down for a brief period of time over the last 2 years, people have kind of got back into those rhythms of being on the go with activities and appointments and places to go and people to see. And this impacts church life in a particular way. What used to be sort of the neighborhood parish, and you grew up, you went to church where you grew up, you knew the people you went to school with, you saw them on a regular basis, interacted with them in the store. That is less and less the case. In Colorado Springs, we're a small town still, and the Catholic world is even smaller, so good chances we will see other Catholics that we know. But at the same time, there is sort of a tension, or sort of a stretching, if you will, of parish life, where folks are happy to drive a half hour to a parish community, to a priest, to a situation that they like or find more suitable to their needs, whether it's the faith formation offerings or things of that nature. We also have folks that have priest loyalty. They will follow the priest to whatever parish he goes to. Folks that are, been in a parish, they had to move for one reason or another, but they want to keep going to the parish. This is increasingly the case, and especially in a military town, people come and go very quickly. It's a challenge to experience one of the most essential features of a Christian life, which is a deep sense of community. Koinonia is the old phrase that it was called. It's not just a neighborhood or a community in the sense that these are people I like, but it's a strong identity rooted in this group of people that I worship with. This is my family. This is my parish. This is my neighborhood. And with so many people being so mobile, it's harder to experience that. Hence, over the last couple of years, a real emphasis on my part in preaching and teaching about making sure that we make time for one another, that we go out of our way to spend time with one another. This is an important part of the Christian life, and it really is impossible without it. At least it's an impoverished experience without it. But it also presents various pastoral challenges, because people have their pastoral needs, and it becomes more difficult to adapt to them as the community has spread out more and more. There might be somebody who needs anointing of the sick up in Briargate, somebody who wants their house blessed down in Security, and people come from all over to this parish, and the parish, having a fairly limited amount of resources, has to try to accommodate for an increasingly spread out and diverse community. And so this does pose certain challenges that really must be confronted quite honestly. And I think there is sort of a give and take, if you will. An opportunity in light of this challenge is a certain, mutual understanding of how things are becoming increasingly mobile in our church, where my parish might be the church on the way to my next thing. Some folks are happy to sort of go to daily mass here, go to their Sunday mass elsewhere. How do we have a reasonable expectation of what we can do for one another and the commitments that the church really does call forth from us to make? There is an important sense of getting away from kind of the one-size-fits-all mentality. At the same time, we also have to be aware of a consumer mentality. I go where I like. And this has been something that the church has had to really struggle with in the last number of decades, and it's going to, I think, increase. But it does call forth a deeper sense of missionary discipleship for every Christian, that we are all not just showing up for a service to be provided us, but rather coming to be built up by Christ, to be then therefore sent out by Christ, to go and serve my community, to go and be that presence of the church in my environment wherever I am. This shift in mentality so often where it might be, I go to my church to, again, get the Eucharist, to have time with people I like, but then I kind of go about the rest of my life. It's going to be less and less tenable. And the last 2 years have really exposed that. Increasingly with priest resource shortages. I'm now the only priest in this parish, and that's really been felt. That strain has been felt not just by me, but by you, by staff and parishioners, people who want to get an appointment with me but have to wait 3 weeks to do so. I don't like that. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's how it is. We are sort of experiencing the consequences of a priest shortage throughout the history of the last number of decades. And for one reason or another, different dioceses, bishops, priests responded to what they saw coming as a priest shortage. Some try to establish an institutional way of living with just fewer priests. Some really trying hard to promote vocations. But I think right now in this time in our history, it's calling on all of us to shoulder that responsibility of really promoting and pursuing vocations as best as possible. Because without the priesthood, there is no Eucharist, there are no sacraments. And we need to have a sort of a very vibrant and intentional culture of promoting vocations from within our communities. It's not somebody else's problem. For decades, it might have been somebody else's problem, but now with fewer priests, it's all of our problem. And this is something that confronts us also. It's a challenge, but I think the opportunity here is for a recovery of this sense of all hands on deck. We need every Christian to be promoting vocations, just like we need every Christian to be building a culture of discipleship from which vocations come. It's not a matter of just getting in numbers. That never helps. We always have been, especially since the 2002 scandals, the church has been radically drawn to the attention of we need to emphasize quality over quantity. Good men, holy men, faithful disciples of Jesus Christ into the priesthood. But to promote them and to build up disciples, and that culture will necessarily yield fruit through vocations. And so I think that opportunity is kind of a gut check, but it's also an opportunity to get down to brass tacks, to kind of get back to what's most important and the foundational efforts of our Christian faith. These challenges will present the good opportunities, I believe, and we've seen it manifest, especially here in Holy Apostles, discipleship, the call to personal discipleship, that I am known and loved and chosen by God, and in that way, called by God to follow him, and part of following him means to be like him. To be like him means to then go out and call others to similarly follow him. to come and see, to spend time, and themselves be transformed into followers of Jesus Christ. In that way, again, it will provide the fruit bed or the seed bed for vocations. But I do think in the meantime, vocations don't happen overnight. Seminary formation does naturally take a while. But in the meantime, our real concerted collective effort to promote vocations is a healthy response to the strain that we sort of just have to abide in the meantime. I think various moments of crises, big and small, can call forth the best in people. And it's happened in the church time and again. And I believe that this change of ages that we're experiencing, the crisis that the church is going through right now, manifest in a number of different ways, is truly a call to call forth heroism, saints, disciples of Jesus who are really intentional and committed to what they are up to. Should I pause? Okay, good. So I think all of this, we've seen wonderful examples of God's grace at work. In the last couple of years, as disorienting as it has been, we've seen so many families kind of rediscover the beauty of family life, working through the challenges of rediscovering what that means, how trying it can be, but how enriching it can be. And the beauty of seeing that the family unit, moms, dads, kids, grandmas and grandpas, aunts and uncles, all have a role in mutually supporting one another in this. That kind of reorientation, refounding of a human scale of living is something that has been needed, and a lot of people have known that it's been needed, but we just haven't had kind of the emotional resources to make it happen. Well, the last 2 years kind of made it happen for us. And in that way, I think we can see kind of God's providential will in allowing these things to happen. Not that he sort of intentionally sent this on us, but there are good things that he has brought forth. Some of the good things he has brought forth in this parish is a real recommitment and a deepening commitment to our sense of discipleship and our life as a parish, as the people of God. Seeing so many young families and so many babies born in the last couple of years. This is a great sign that the church is alive. If you were here at the 9 o'clock Mass this last Sunday, you saw this entire back wall lined with candidates and catechumens for the RCIA. People are drawn to the Lord, and we are blessed to be a vehicle for that encounter. And so God's grace continues to shine forth. But I do think he is inviting us as we move through history to kind of take a step back and appreciate just the shifting ways of thinking about the life of the church and how we are a part of it, and being open to perhaps thinking of conceivable changes or things that might be opportunities for more effectively being who we were made to be. And sometimes the oftentimes reluctant but necessary letting go of certain things that may need to pass from existence, or at least be paused and shelved for the time being. I'm not proposing anything tonight as far as what exactly that looks like. And even in fact, over the last few years, we've been talking about things like a clarification of the parish mission, what that looks like with a focus on our efforts as a parish kind of being simplified and moved towards ministry and apostolate, what that looks like in particular. I won't go over that. That was sort of last year's state of the parish. I'm happy to make that information available again to anybody who would like to revisit that or learn more. But with the parish council, we tried to sort of, I call it the disciplined pursuit of less. What are the things that are essential to our existence? And how do we focus on doing those well? I believe that in doing those well, the Lord blesses it and causes it to bear fruit. So often we can become so preoccupied with things that are not necessarily bad. They might be good in and of themselves, but in the big picture may serve as a distraction from the most important things that we're doing. Corrie ten Boom, survivor of the Holocaust, said, if the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. And this is a constant challenge for me as a priest, because there is a never-ending litany of things that I could be doing, but there are some things that I need to be doing. And what are those things? How do I prioritize them? I think it applies to every one of us in our lives. How does that apply to us as a parish? What are the things that we absolutely need to be doing, which implies there are some things that might be good that we just can't be doing, as good as they may be. And this is a hard thing, especially if we're used to a particular way of being a parish, doing parish life over our childhood into our adult lives. It's something that I think we're going to kind of have to feel out as we go, but God is with us. God will not change. And he is constantly trying to prune the vine so that it may bear more fruit. So that's kind of just an overarching pastoral reflection that I wanted to offer to begin our conversation tonight. But we are a parish. We are in a place, geographically speaking. We have administrative responsibilities. There are certain features and details that are important for all of us to know, just to get a gauge of how we're doing. And we're doing really well. And I want to offer some insights tonight as to what that looks like. So we started with prayer. This is kind of the order that we're going to go through. We're going just quickly visit parish staff. We have a few new additions from last time. Revisit our parish and finance councils, a little bit of a year in review, stewardship, then the culture of missionary discipleship. I already hit on that, so we won't really spend too much time there. But then our financial review, update on where we are with building projects, and a look at the year ahead, or at least the next few weeks ahead. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So we welcomed a couple new staff members, many of these familiar faces, but Carla Burdick had just joined us, and we like her a lot. She's going to stay. We welcomed Mike Picard, who replaced Mike Iverson, who was our faith formation director. Mike went to a parish up in Green Bay because of family health issues, but we got a Mike Picard from Green Bay. And really, I just didn't want to change the name on the door plate. So it worked out very well, but he's been really hard at work and a welcome addition to the team. We've also welcomed Tara Beatty to our front office. She's helping out with a number of different clerical, secretarial things. She's actually the granddaughter of Jeannie Potts, a parishioner that many of you know. So she's kind of like one of our own, if you will. Sean Simpson has been helping out with a lot of groundskeeping and basic facilities maintenance things. He's been a real help and a godsend for all these things that you just kind of know need to get done, but you never know who does it. Sean does it. So he's a great addition also. We also welcomed Deacon Kevin Barkasy. You've seen him, he's the tallest deacon, he's the tallest cleric now in the whole group. And somebody just mentioned the other day, as I was sort of sitting in this even elevated chair, and he was in that shorter chair, he's still taller than me. But I can deal with that, that's okay. We have pretty much the same constitution for our parish council, and these folks are hard at work. I'm very proud of them for the efforts they put into our first Sunday event last weekend. It's going to be the first Sunday of every month, where they're going to work with different ministries and apostolates in the parish to put on sort of these fellowship gatherings, have an opportunity to advertise what the different ministries and apostolates do, and garner some attention and interest. If people want to sign up, great opportunity, ask questions, but then just spend time with each other, having coffee and donuts, good fellowship opportunity. And it's a wonderful way to invite people in. You know, if you know neighbors or people that you just don't quite know how to invite them to come to church and make them feel welcome, First Sundays is a great opportunity. They may not be able to come to communion. They are welcome here at church. We are blessed to have them pray with us and then spend some time in fellowship afterwards with us as well. Our finance council has a new chairperson, Mr. Drew Van Gorder. He's been brave enough to take on that role and taken it on with wholeheartedly. We are currently working on recruiting some new membership for our finance council. The ideal number is 9, especially when it comes to not just consultation, but also voting. That both parish and finance councils have canonical roles in the administration and the life of the parish. If there are certain efforts that require a dollar amount over $15,000, then they have to both consult and agree to it. They have to vote to support that. And then over $50,000, it has to go all the way to the diocese. But they have a lot of pastoral and administrative important roles to play, and advice, sometimes calling me back down to reality. So I'm very, very grateful for their presence. Now this might be hard to read, but this is the year in review. These are just a few things that stood out. But last year was a very busy year. I mean, every year Holy Apostles is a busy year. But in particular, kind of gearing back up some of the unique moments that we had as a parish. We had, the Christmas 2020 was sort of I would say the big official reopening, if you will, to the public. We had had masses long before, but this was something that we anticipated a lot of people coming in and not sure quite how to handle it. We did signups, but it turns out that a lot of people weren't ready to come back to church yet. So no parish in the diocese saw as many people as we thought we would have. And so that kind of confronted us with this idea of, okay, things are different. We're going to have to adapt to a new reality of things and realize that we might have to focus on our missionary efforts, especially even among Catholics. I don't know, say to myself sometimes when I drive out that end of the parking lot where it says entering mission territory, really mission territory is still in here. a lot of times the people that we worship next to, they may just be 1 foot out the door. And COVID really manifested that. Some folks have not come back to church because maybe they just hadn't been going to church and they hadn't been really necessarily living any different in their Christian lives, and not going to church didn't make their lives any different anyhow, so why go back? I know a lot of people in that circumstance. So we have a lot of work to do, and Christmas kind of, I think, brought that home as a reality. We introduced a new area of stewardship, personal stewardship, which was well received, and we're going to revisit it this January. We welcomed our seminarian, Patrick D. Loretto. He's in Mount St. Mary's right now working on his seminary education, but he'll hopefully be back with us at least for a few masses in Christmas. We also had Father Ken Geraci with us the first time, those 3 months. He offered his parish mission, Why Be Catholic, that was turned into a book, and many of you own it, hopefully with a signed copy. We did our leadership formation series. Our parish council led a 6-month, once-a-month series on helping the leaders in our parish and the apostolates and ministries to kind of equip them and empower them to live their life of leadership more intentionally, how to do that, how to help them to know that they are supported, and we want to help them do what they do. This idea of sort of a decentralization of self-understanding of leadership in the parish is an important way that we're going to have to, I think, adapt to in the future history of the Catholic Church, especially in parish life. So often we're used to sort of, if somebody wants to move the flowers, we have to ask what Father thinks. I certainly have my opinions, but I don't need to give my opinion on everything. There are things that, as the pastor, I delegate and I trust deeply. Staff, leaders in the apostolates, leaders in the ministries, they don't have to consult me for every decision they make. 1, it would drive me crazy. 2, it would drive them crazy. But 3, it's also an exercise of what we call subsidiarity, that leaders are meant to be well-formed, but also then supported and allowed to carry out their role of leadership. And I really do trust and think very highly of the leaders in our parish to be able to do just that. Now, I kind of have a perspective on different efforts and elements in the life of the parish that it might require me to step in and say, well, hold on here because they're doing this in this way. Or this may be, again, a good idea, but not what we're about as a whole. And so that's kind of where I step in, but it's not getting in the mud, micromanaging. I'm really, really, really trying to move away from that in all areas, especially in areas of leadership. And so the Leadership Formation Series was an important step in that direction. We completed our plaza project, and I'm really excited for the first snowfall to see if that snowmelt system actually does what they said it does. We reignited our capital campaign to continue to be able to move forward with our remaining projects. Bishop Sheridan retired. Well, he actually retired before that. He was retired for a year, but sort of in that time of the vacant see, we kind of had to navigate some things along the way. We lost Father Paul. That was a very big moment in the life of the parish to have families come together for the vigil. Hours of sharing stories and moments, unique graces in Father Paul's ministry in the lives of so many people, and then a very full church for his funeral the next day. It was a very beautiful set series of days, and I know that that was an important moment to recognize just the very tremendous role he played in the lives of so many parishioners and people throughout the city. People came in from out of state because they just needed to come and be here for that very important day. We had our Corpus Christi procession around, and we didn't set one single tree on fire with those big torches if you saw them. Bishop Golka's ordination, that was probably one of the biggest events that this parish has ever seen. The ordination of a bishop is a rare thing, and we were blessed to be able to host that. And all of our volunteers and staff and parishioners and leaders, everybody just put on the absolute best possible ordination. People from across the diocese, from outside of the diocese, bishops from other places said that was the best hospitality we have ever experienced. And Holy Apostles is known for its hospitality, so a big congratulations and a kudos and a thanks to you all for making that happen. I got to celebrate my 10th anniversary with the parish at Mass and then in the reception afterwards. Father Lawrence, we bid farewell to him, and that's when things kind of started to straighten a little bit more, but God's grace is there. We're making it through. With that, we changed our confession times. We used to have the 2 daily masses. We went to just 1 daily mass, and then offered confessions Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7:50 a.m., and that's been well taken advantage of. Our August 15th parish picnic was a great success. Lots of fun with that. We were able to engage local businesses who are very generous in supporting our parish. And it's a good sign that, we have a real significance in the local community, and they do too. We want to work together with that. And so that was a really nice effort. And again, thanks to all the staff and volunteers. Rosemary, who was, I think you got probably a few more gray hairs from that, but you wear them well. You did a great job with that. We began the transition to Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, our faith formation program. And, I completely own all of the kind of crazy, perhaps even a little too ambitious efforts, but all the credit goes to Peggy Armstrong, Carla Burdick, Mike Picard, our catechists, the homeschooling families that supported this and made it possible as we start to, kind of get it embedded in the life of the church. This is a big transition year for Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. But if you've ever known somebody that's gone through it or know what the program is, it really is worth the efforts and the headache. But I have to really make up for some difficult times that I've put some poor people through because of this. But I think their rewards will be great in heaven. Please, God, you have to take care of them better than I can. We welcomed Father Ken back for the month of October. We had a great parish mission over those 3 nights on spiritual warfare and healing. A lot of people had a great experience and experienced just that healing from those nights. And so that was a wonderful gift as well. Our All Souls Mass just 2 weeks ago was a beautiful opportunity to commemorate our departed loved ones, especially those who we weren't able to properly mourn during COVID. It was kind of a part 2 of an infant pregnancy loss vigil that we had a few weeks before. And that's something that's become an important part of the parish life, where our MOPS group, some of our moms who have experienced pregnancy loss, they put on this beautiful prayer vigil and invite families in to be able to commemorate that. It's a lot more of a common occurrence than many people realize. And to see other people who have gone through that too is itself a healing thing. It's a grace. And I'm grateful for those moms who put that on. And, again, kind of following up with that in the same spirit with our All Souls Mass. And then again, our first Sunday fellowship, introducing that. So very busy year. Those are just a very few highlights, but I don't imagine this year is going to be tremendously slower, but hopefully we won't have a new bishop's ordination. Hopefully we won't have another pastor's funeral. Hopefully we'll be able to not count on a few of those big events happening in 2022. So we kind of linger around this number of 1,325 registered families. We are very, very thorough with our registration records, making sure that we don't just kind of have, that we want an accurate count, I guess. And so sometimes folks will register and then never unregister, and it happens. I mean, it's part of parish life. But without sort of recognizable activity, we just move them to an inactive status. So these are active and registered parishioners, whereas I think we probably are serving closer to maybe 1,800 or 2,000 families who come, pass through, who would call this their parish, but they haven't registered. It's sort of a hard target to nail down. But right now, with our average weekly attendance, thanks to Joe Murphy and our great ushers, Eves, taking those counts, helping us to get an idea of who is coming to Mass and how many people we have. So, this is almost about where we were pre-COVID. I think we're about 150, almost 200 people lower. But, the 9 o'clock Mass is filling with all those candidates and catechumens that we've had. Our effort continues to be reaching out and inviting people in. But that's kind of where we at with this. With these numbers for average weekend Mass attendance. Our weekday Masses have kind of gone back up to normal and then some. Just today's Mass, I would say probably 100, maybe 120 or so. So that becomes a very popular offering, especially throughout the week, seeing different people's rhythms, families who can make it different days of the week, and then just some of our stalwart day in, day out Mass goers, wonderful faces that you can always count on seeing and helping out. So thank you, you know who you are. Numbers for participation in faith formation. We have about 140 children total in our Catechesis of the Good Shepherd and faith formation process. We have about 25 children in our first reconciliation, first communion. There's a missing N up there, I'm sorry. In our family RCIA, so we have adult RCIA and then family RCIA, where if a family has not necessarily had whole catechesis together, or they may have some kids, several of whom want to come into the church, we have an opportunity for them to go through an RCIA process led by Ms. Peggy Armstrong. And so we have about 20 candidates and catechumens, meaning those who are already baptized and need to come into full communion with the church, those who are not baptized, those who may have been baptized Catholic but uncatechized. So it kind of catches a number of different categories of folks. Then we have 19 candidates and catechumens in our adult RCA class, led by Mike Picard, and we have a couple other parishioners who serve as instructors and sponsors. Thank you so much for being a part of that. It's been really edifying to see the last couple years more parishioners stepping forward to walk with these candidates and catechumens along the way. About almost half the folks in the room on Tuesday nights are parishioners who are there to act as sponsors, support, maybe even just to kind of relearn some of the things that they may want to relearn. But it's really a great sign to see parishioners settling up alongside people who want to be a part of our faith. And then teen confirmation, we have about 35 teens total, and confirmation is a 2-year process. And so in the first year we have, in year 2, 17, in year 1, 18. And we're looking forward to a confirmation for those students sometime in the spring, as well as those baptized Catholics in our RCIA programs or processes who would then need to also be confirmed by the bishop. In our youth program, we've got a really growing, awesome youth program, and Carla Berg and her husband have worked so hard to really build it up, and a lot of other volunteers and parishioners chipped in to be sort of to help lead, to be leaders, to be chaperones, to just help bring food. Those are all necessary parts. 3 years ago, we had middle school and high school combined, average of 15 to 20 students attending. Last year, that went up to about 30 to 35 average. This year, Carla split middle school from high school, and the numbers have just gone up, about 35 to 40 middle schoolers average attendance, and then high school about 20 students. And if you've ever met Carla, she's just a really great energy. I mean, I would say she's kind of one of those sort of burning embers. Like there's a light, a real light, but it's kind of consistent. It's not sort of necessarily flashy, but it's always there. It doesn't flicker. And I really love that about her. And she and her husband, she's on staff. He just kind of comes, they come as a package deal, I guess. But he also helps out with, especially the men, but we also have other parishioners who are helping the young men and the young women as mentors for our youth program. So it's growing. If you know youth, come on, invite them in. It's a great experience and wonderful fellowship. I know that's a big purpose that Carla has, is developing a Catholic community. Because again, to be Catholic means to be in communion, not just with the Eucharist, but what the Eucharist implies, to make us one body. And to have kids experience that intentionally is a necessary thing for the life of the church. As I mentioned, we introduced personal stewardship with our whole stewardship year. We introduced that in January, which is about halfway through the actual year. We typically start late summer and in the spring. But with personal stewardship at the beginning of the calendar year, we'll reintroduce that again this year, and hopefully it'll just keep gaining traction. In April, we did Stewardship of God's Creation, and this really, I think, is an important conversation, or an important opportunity to help a Christian perspective inform a conversation that the world is having about ecology, care for the earth, how do we impact it, but also how that applies, and this is the Catholic perspective, how we are stewards of God's creation. We're not in charge, we're not God, creation is not God. How do we, as creatures made by God with a responsible stewardship for his creation, do that in our own lives, in the ways that we can? I think there are a lot of, just like with anything political or anything that gets politicized, a lot of energy that gets spent on the big picture, and yet we overlook the thing right in front of us. And that's, I think, an important Catholic perspective, is we have a responsibility for our environment in which we live, of which we are a part. And to be able to bring the Catholic understanding to that conversation, I think, is to ground it in reasonable sanity, but also to give it a hope of actually having constructive possibility. To actually help people to realize, like, this isn't a political issue. It's just simply a way of living as a Christian. How do we live responsibly in our lives, making those responsible choices? So we had 373 responses for that commitment weekend. Reduce usage of electricity was a common commitment, keeping a tidy yard. And that may not sound ecological, but what is ecology? Is a concern for the places in which we live, which we want to be beautiful. And part of our nature as social beings is that it's not just about what I like, but also how do I integrate into the community as a whole. And if my yard is the one yard with dead grass, overgrown weeds and shrubs, and it's just a big mess on the block, how do you think that makes my neighbors feel about me? I respect them, therefore I try to care for the public spaces in my life and in theirs as well. Car, to be able to walk, carpool, use public transportation more, and then maintenance problems to the parish office, and you were all very, very good at that. Thank you. Stewardship of prayer. This actually is what begins our year of stewardship, and because it's the foundation, it's the most important, and it has the highest number of responses. So this last year we had 457 responses. Private prayer commitments, rosary, daily silent prayer, morning and evening prayers, public prayer commitments, grace before meals. We don't pray to be seen, but we're not afraid to be seen praying. Weekly Mass, Eucharistic adoration, the prayer intentions, end of abortion, peace in the world, and for those who have no one to pray for them. And that one really kind of touches my heart because just in my wanderings as a priest, I get to meet a lot of people that feel like they have no one. And to know that I can say to them, no, you do. You have somebody and they're my parish. They're praying for you. That's such a great thing to be able to offer somebody. Then stewardship of faith, 390 responses, also very high. This is a great sign. We want to be well-formed disciples so that when we go out and exercise our baptismal call to teach and to preach and to make Christ known, we want to be actually preaching Christ, not just sort of our version of him. And so faith formation is an important thing. And, a lot of folks are committing to adoration, which is sitting at the feet of the Master, just like Mary, the sister of Martha. Monthly confession, so that we are constantly growing. We are presenting our need, our faults before the Lord, but also taking advantage of his graces to grow. And Bible studies, we've got some great Bible studies. Our Tuesday morning group, our Friday morning men's group, and a number of other ones that are just kind of popping up. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You do not need Father's permission to start a Bible study. You can start it in your home, in a cafe, wherever. It's a great thing to do to bring people together and engage the Word of God. We have wonderful aids along the way, commentaries, various sort of prepackaged Bible studies. More power to you. Please take advantage of those. Those are wonderful ways to invite your neighbors into greater community where you live. Christian music, books from the library. We've got a great library. And reading Catholic Herald, great Catholic Herald. And then sharing your faith. That's a natural expression of it. We have such good faith, we want to share it. We have a natural instinct to share things that give us life. If you saw that really cute birthday card or a meme that made you laugh, like you share it, you send it to people. That's just kind of how it works. So faith is no exception to that. And that last one, share your faith story with a friend or family member. I think that's probably one of the most effective and important things we can do. Many of us have family members and friends that no longer practice the faith. Some of them come right out and say, don't talk to me about religion. But we can talk about our own experiences, because they're ours. And most people will actually respect that and listen to that. So I think that's a beautiful way to share our faith. Stewardship of finances. This is the most recent one, end of October. And as of yesterday, we had 228 responses. We've got a third round of letters going out to parishioners, thanking those who have made a commitment, encouraging those who have yet to do so to please consider doing so. And those who've just kind of said no thanks, to ask them to please consider doing so, but at the very least, pray for the parish. But this is an important area of our stewardship because it also has to do with being able to do what we do, support it financially. Parish life doesn't happen for nothing. It is an important expression of our discipleship, but also a functional application with being able to help people grow as disciples, to equip them to go out, to be able to offer the sacraments and the many things that go on at a parish. So right now, with those 228 responses, we have $687,925 pledged for 2022. Pledges begin in January of 22. Compared to last year, we had 314, so there's still a bit of a gap to make up. And then we had 812,713. So, with just over $150,000 difference between last year and this year, and the number of responses, the difference between those two, I think, people have been very generous this year. This is a really good number for that number of responses. But we really do want to encourage parishioners, all of our parishioners, to find some way, even if it's 25 cents a month. That's a commitment. It doesn't have to be extravagant, but what it is that sort of tangible sacrificial gesture to God, like, I'm going to give this to you, you do with it what you want. It doesn't matter how much it is. It matters that it is. And that's the point we try to hammer home. I think this is one of those areas where we constantly have to revisit to sort of purify what we understand about our finances. As I'll say at the beginning of every stewardship year, stewardship isn't just code language for money. It's a part of our stewardship, but that's not what stewardship is about. It's about our relationship with God and how He gives us everything, how we respond with gratitude and take responsibility for those gifts. So looking ahead to this next year, we'll have Stewardship of Vocations coming up in December. And as I said at the beginning, really, I hope that we all pray for vocations. Every time that you call the office and say, Father can't meet for 3 more weeks, pray for vocations. Every time that I'm not just able to be around as much as I would like to with a family loss, with a family celebration, and you think, man, where's Father? Pray for vocations. I really am not trying to hole up as a recluse and avoid people. I really just am that much in demand, and it's not because of my personality. It's because the life of a priest is an important thing, and God has blessed me with that. But I also have to realize that I've got to be a priest my whole life, not just for a year. And so to make sure I get sleep, make sure I try to eat healthy and get some exercise from time to time. It's so that I can try to have something to give, rather than just sort of be stretched thin and then eventually who knows what. A lot of priests don't necessarily take care of themselves, and so they're eventually not able to give of themselves. And that's not a good thing. I do not want to get there. Nobody wants me to get there. And so if I say not today, next week, or maybe not at all, or something like that, it's not coming from a place of I don't like you, I'm trying to guard myself. It's in the sense of trying to look at the longevity, the sustainability of my own role as a pastor until, God willing, we get a new priest in the spring. Hopefully we will. We're going to have 2 guys ordained as priests in the spring, God willing, and then I think at least 2 more for the next number of years after that. So God is doing good things. It just takes time. And if we don't want our children and grandchildren's generation to be unable to access priests, it's our responsibility now to promote vocations. If we want to eat next year, we have to plant crops today. And that's very much the spirit of vocation. So Stewardship of Vocations in December will focus on that, and really, as a parish, pray for that specifically from our community. January, personal stewardship of God's creation back in April. May, stewardship of service. This is kind of an evolving concept that the parish council we've talked about, and we're not quite sure what this should look like. Please pray for our guidance in this. And if you have, if you're interested in kind of having a conversation and joining the parish council in one of those conversations, reach out to me, and I'll invite you to when we have that conversation. But stewardship of service is an important thing, but it's not about multiplying efforts or opportunities to serve. It's kind of in some ways supporting the key things that are already there and finding the essential components that need our support and service first. And then August, September, October, that kind of rapid fire succession of stewardship of prayer and faith, and then finances. So that's the stewardship overview. Now for the finances. We are blessed. We are blessed by your generosity. We are blessed by the sacrificial giving of many people, the commitments that stewards of finances have made. So this is comparing last year's total actual to this year, which is July 1, the beginning of our fiscal year, up through the end of October. And so these numbers are different because it's a little more than half of a year apart. This is the entire 2021 fiscal year. So far this year with our worship totals, which include capital campaigns, but things like offertory, especially, we've got about $260,000 of income. And then faith formation, things like books, other either gifts perhaps. I think also in this is included income from our, this doesn't, nope, that's down here. So this is, book totals and things like that. General and administrative totals, this would also be some of offertory, but then other gifts. I think this includes some of our bequests, what's the word I'm looking for? Endowments. We have 2 parish endowments that yield 5% dividend every year. One of them is for Catholic education. A single parishioner a few years ago gave about $250,000 endowment for Catholic education tuition assistance. And that is accrued interest over the years, so now it's about $400,000 over that now. And we get a 5% dividend off of that to spend on Catholic education tuition assistance. We were able to support our preschoolers and then graduates from our preschool with Catholic education scholarships throughout their whole lives. So we have parishioners that went to our preschool, going to a Catholic college now, we give them scholarships. And so that happens every springtime. And so if you know graduates from our preschool or attendees of our preschool who are going on to Catholic schools either locally or colleges out of state, they are able to receive Catholic tuition education assistance. But we also were able to support some of our in-house efforts with helping to support spiritual director formation. That is a great need in our parish, to have more spiritual directors. And some of our very prayerful and wise parishioners are going through that formation. We are helping to support them because that is an important need in our parish, and it's something that applies and kind of pays back here into the life of the parish. And then some other efforts that we have we're able to maximize that endowment. We also have a parish endowment that I think right now is about $45,000 or $50,000, and that yields about a $2,000 dividend every year. So I think this year might have been closer to $3,000, but we're able to apply that usually in these years to our capital campaign efforts to try to build up more and more seed money for that. But that falls under the general and admin totals as well. We do rent spaces. Either parties or outside organizations might want to use Mary's house or the parish hall, and so we do have a little bit of an income with that. This number is in the red, capital improvement rectory. That's because we have spent out more than we have received for that designated area, but what we have spent out is from a savings account that already exists and has that to spend. And so none of this reflects that what we have in savings. This is all the income that we have received, and so this reflects a negative income compared to what we had paid out for our plaza project, for example. We were able to do all of our HVAC, grease trap kitchen, plaza project with no loan. That's an amazing thing, especially during COVID. You've probably heard me say this before, I hope you have, because it's something worth celebrating. We have had to take no loan, and we've been able to pay it all off from what we've brought in with capital campaign pledges and from our savings and our capital improvement account. So this number is, red usually is scary in budgets, but this really, as it kind of pans out, as you'll see in the next slide. And then preschool tuition and grants. Our kiddos do have a tuition to our preschool. So right now, $817,000 income for where we are at this point in the fiscal year. Last year, we reorganized our expense model, or our expense listing, because sometimes we see things like personnel or administrative costs, and it's always a big number. Usually personnel is about half of an organization's budget, but that's sort of deceiving because they're not just sort of office dwellers. We've got folks doing liturgy, sacraments, faith formation, administration, certainly facilities, hospitality, and parish life. So we tried to sort of parse it out in a more accurate presentation of where our resources are actually going. And so on our expense lines, we've got music, and that's not just a salary. I mean, Audrey gets paid more than that. But that goes to things like licensing, and if we have, if we are using music outside of the missal, that would go for licensing. We have to, account for that, and then maintaining the pianos and other things of that nature for the music. Liturgy overall, that includes the priests and what we do, but then also wine, bread, candles, expenses. We do have some of that income, and I'm sorry, in the previous slide, I think under general and administrative is included income from the candles, the votive candles, but then we pay out for that too. So it's almost, I think it just about breaks even for that. Communication, this is an important area for any institution, especially now, because as I said, we have folks that aren't necessarily right in our neighborhood, folks that don't always read our bulletin. We have to be a lot more expansive and creative with our communication. And as we found, video communication is a much more effective way of reaching a lot more people. Within, I think, about a week and a half, we had 2,000 views for Bishop Golka's fireside chat that he was on with us. And that's a great sign. It's a sign that people do tune in. And so we're trying to capitalize on that, but also have nice and attractive bulletins, advertisements, ways of engaging the parish. And so that's an important feature as well. Stewardship, that's how we operate. It's not just financially, but kind of that mentality, that expression of our discipleship. Faith formation, again, part of the lifeblood. Charity and outreach. It's important to always remember that if we are asking our parishioners to take tithing seriously, we as a parish take tithing seriously. We support our neighbors in need. Some of this goes to diocesan charities, meaning either designated outreach income for or offertory for specific charities that we might support throughout the world. One is the retirement fund for religious, but then it also would include things like St. Vincent de Paul. We've been blessed to be able to support our own St. Vincent de Paul conference or society with I think 40,000 by now. And we've been able to help over 150 neighbors in need with direct assistance. Our members, our Vincentians, they will go and meet with our neighbors in need, assess their needs, try to get them plugged in with additional resources, and then help them with the actual expenses or particular unique needs that they have. We continue to support Mercy's Gate. We support Life Network. We support a number of, I should have probably printed up a whole list, but that number goes a long, long way, and that's only for this point in the year. It's a blessing to be able to help people, and the needs are not decreasing. We're actually looking at trying to find a way to regularly support the Mater Filius house that's being built at St. Gabriel's. That's a house that's being built for single mothers in crisis pregnancy, so that they have a place to live, be supported, be loved, and they can live there and raise their children up through, I think is it second grade or preschool? It might be second grade. But basically, when they get on their feet, we want to help them get on their feet. And it started in Mexico. There's a house in Omaha, and it's a very well-established model. But we want to try to support them, especially because as we are very pro-life people, we are pro-life in every sense, and we want to help support those moms who feel they have no other option. There is always another option, and we want to help them to see that potential. So. That's another way that we're going to be able to capitalize on our outreach and charity. We have a separate account. So it's not just like a line in our budget. Actually, we designate from our budget every offertory, every collection into our charitable outreach account. So it doesn't get touched. It always will happen. We will tithe. And parish life, coffee and donuts is a great example of that. What we get to do, but then so much more. General and admin, yep, there are always going to be administrative expenses, but when you see these other things parsed out more accurately, this number is more accurate. And then facilities, heating, cooling, insurance, maintenance, preschool operation, we've got that, but that's offset largely also by tuition. And then our third-year capital campaign prepaid expense, meaning this is something we budgeted in 3 years ago when we started this, and had already basically designated its payment for being able to do the capital campaign. We did the capital campaign. We had to pay the company to help us to get that set up and operate it and run it. And so it was a 3-year payout, and this is the third-year expense for that. So our expense total is, at this point, as of October 31st, is $449,000. That has a net surplus of $318,400. We are very, very, very conservative with our budgeting and our expenses. My hat's off and tremendous thanks to our staff who put up with it. They really stretch every dollar they have. I think on the one hand, they've discovered that you can do a lot with a little, but they do even more with a little, and they're so good at it. So we're very blessed to do that. At the end of the year with our surpluses, what we've been able to do, and this is one of the reasons we've been able to pay off our construction expenses without a loan, is because we've had surpluses that we've been able to apply to our capital expenses. And I have a feeling that's really going to be what carries us going forward. We're going to most likely need some loans to do other upcoming projects, which we'll talk about in a second, but I just hate that word. I shudder at it. But even that being the case, if our parishioners continue to commit and be generous and excel at financial stewardship, this I think we'll continue to see some surpluses. As you've all probably seen, cost of life increases over the next 3 or 4 years are predicted to be fairly high. And I'm committed as a pastor to pay a just wage. Churches are notorious for underpaying, and we have great staff who work very hard. They are very talented, and they deserve a just wage. And I'm very intent on that. It still isn't what they would get in a secular institution. But I would say that we try to stay very competitive as far as parishes go. And they make this place run, and that's something that is really an important biblical principle to recognize. So that's kind of our budget, and we'll have an opportunity at the end for Q&A where we can revisit these if you'd like to stick around for that. Online giving has been a wonderful gift. It's something that, especially during COVID, carried us. We did not see a tremendous differential in our offertory during COVID because of people's commitment, and online giving was a great part of that. This number, 364, is pretty much what we had last year. So I think it'll be time before long to revisit parish-wide the importance of online giving as just a great way to have it taken care of. You don't even have to think about it. Some like to write the check because it is sort of a prayer that they write this check and say, God, here it is. You do this, what you need. I'm giving this to you. But either way, I think that commitment as expressed by our online givers is wonderful. We also continue our King Supers community giving, which is basically where you would preload a card. I think it is preloaded, isn't it? Or is it? Oh, no. Oh. It's your customer number? Yeah. Okay, so your customer number, and I've got one. I don't have my keys with me. But you basically swipe it like you normally would for your regular discount on certain products that would go to like your gas points and things like that. But King Supers gives a portion of that to the parish. And what we've received in 20 and 21 is $6,210. That's really good. And it's a good incentive for King Supers because they know who butters their bread. I send people from Mass to go grocery shop on Sundays. I mean, I don't send them, but that's what happens. Like, who doesn't go grocery shopping on Sundays? So that's something that is a great thing that I really want to make sure we revisit also, because it's an effortless way to help support the parish and make our money work for us. So on our capital campaign, our completed project costs are right about $3.2 million. And that is something really to be proud of, that we've been able to do these big need projects during COVID and have paid them off. Right now we have, it says Plaza loan paid. We had started the line of credit and then realized quickly we don't need this, and we just paid it off. So that was kind of a neat little moment. But those numbers of pledges and gifts received are, they are what this number break out into. Other income and grants that helped us to build that number, and that final payment that we made against that unnecessary or superfluous loan. We have no way of really accurately gauging the cost of the remaining projects. It's something that has sort of been an amorphous, impossible number, especially with recent fluctuations in construction, materials cost, and labor costs. So these numbers are really rough estimates. If we were to look at some of the ongoing or other projects that we would want to accomplish, this seems to be a very safe number, but there is no guarantee. I'm not going to give one because I don't know. But we have about $1 million in unfulfilled pledges, and that's going to probably be a moving target because people move, as happens in life. People's employment or income status changes, and so we still want to encourage people to fulfill their pledges in as much as possible. But I know that it's not possible for some. So it is what it is. But we're going to have to look at the difference between what we have yet coming into pledges, the seed money that we're putting away for the next round of projects, and then what the actual cost and total expense was. So when we set out with this Christ Light for Generations capital campaign a couple years ago, this $6,700,000 number was just sort of the number that the contractor put out there, say, okay, if this is a list including your needs and wants, this is what we think it might cost. It was just kind of a big ballpark number. And so that's kind of the number that we've been sticking with, because I would love to be able to come back and say, no, it's only going to cost $1 million, but I don't think so. But anyway, on this topic, where are we? So we've got these other projects completed, and there is momentum, there's effort and need to start addressing some of the other things that are really having to do with the church itself inside here, and then downstairs, the parish hall, the classrooms, everything else regarding that. What we've done is, what we've had to do with the previous projects is we've sent out a request for proposals to 4 architectural firms. We had a walkthrough with them October 29th. I showed them all of the research that we had, including the assessment that we had done in 2017, looking at plumbing, electrical work, structural work, mechanical work. They saw everything that we had done up to this point, including the different conceptual designs that were put together to say, hey, this is what some of your interior renovations could look like. And then they were all supposed to have submitted extra questions that they had that weren't answered or that came up later by Tuesday. We didn't get any. We had a very thorough meeting. One company that we went to from out of state said, it's great, you got such great local talent, we're just going to step out. So that leaves 3 companies that are going to submit proposals, and they're supposed to do that by, it's the end of this, what day? Oh, thank you. Sorry. Yep, good. Right answer. Would that all high school teachers did the same, yeah. What was the Franco-Prussian War about? No, sorry, nerd humor. So yeah, by November 19th. And then we're going to do interviews with them just to make sure that we get to know them, get to know what they're capable of, ask our questions. Our building committee, one of our building committee members, he's a hospital architect. He knows everybody. He knows the guy who designed this place, Bill Brown, or knew him, God rest his soul. So he's on our building committee and some other parishioners. And so we'll interview, and then, and I just found out today, actually, the selection will be December 7th. That's when the Diocesan Building and Properties Committee meeting got moved to from the 14th. So before Christmas, we'll know who we want to go with. That architect will then take our needs assessment, will take our design concepts, and start to refine things. They're going to come and meet with us as a parish, present, get input and feedback. And this is meant to be a very consultative process of getting feedback from parishioners. Like, is this the direction? Is this something that we like? Pews, that's a very important thing. You sit in them more than I do. It's not necessarily appropriate for me to say, yeah, all hardback pews. Like, we'll get a few samples if we can and have people sit in them and say, okay, we like this one. Things that we want to get, again, consultations and buy-in. We do want to avoid like design by committee, because then it just looks like a big refrigerator mishmash. But with having some ideas already proposed, to be able to say, yeah, I'd like that. Or what about this color here? Kind of tweak things instead of starting from scratch. That's the goal, and then be able to refine that throughout the spring of 2022 to be able to have a bid-worthy design, to then be able to go to contractors and say, okay, this is what we want to do. What's it going to cost us? Until we have that level of refined architectural drawings, we're just going to kind of be ballparking and groping around in the dark. And so that's really when we'll get an idea of what we would be in for. And in that point, we're going to instruct them along the way to have a whole bunch of, there's a phrase I'm looking for, it just escaped me, add alternatives. So, if there was a standalone element that could be removed if it was just too expensive, we can do that. There are things that we can take out as needed if we just look at our finances and say, we can't afford that. And so what can we afford? And start to back into it that way. So, and then, possibly by summer of 2022, we might be ready for that process. So in the meantime, what we're doing is, again, continuing to encourage folks, ask them to, if they're able to, fulfill their pledges. Father Paul, God rest him, in his second will, in his first and second will, he left his house to the parish. We don't have an original of that second will, so it's been in probate, and that actually has been overseen by one of the executive of his estate, Cynthia Tremoroli, has been doing that with her firm, and that's going through the El Paso probate court. But then once that gets clear, she'll be able to help us to understand where we sit. I know that there was a reverse mortgage on the house, and so whatever the resale of the house is, we'll have to subtract that reverse mortgage amount, and then the remainder we'll be able to put towards this capital campaign. We also have a number of gifts that came in for the rededication of our parish hall as Wicker Hall. And I want to do this actually sooner rather than later. And even though it won't be the full renovation that we want to do, December 18th is the anniversary of Father Paul's ordination to the priesthood. And I thought that would be a very appropriate date to formally rededicate Wicker Hall as that. And so we're working with a parishioner who's an artist to come up with a very fitting plaque with a picture of Father Paul and a description, maybe probably his favorite scripture quote from John 17, and having that be able to set up maybe some pictures of previous pastors, current pastor maybe, downstairs in the parish hall for that rededication on December 18th. So stay tuned for news for that. But I know a number of parishioners did designate and give gifts for that renovation, and that is going to happen. It's just a matter of what we need to do all at the same time and what we can do now. And this is one of those things that we can do now, December 18th. I think it's a Saturday, so we'll probably do it after the evening mass if we can. So that's kind of the big picture of where we are with our capital campaign and projects. Upcoming events. Thanksgiving is coming up soon already. Thankfully, the weather's started to get colder. I like the cold, I know. Some people like the warm weather, but we're going to have a 9 a.m. Mass that day, no 7 a.m. confessions. I'll open up the church. Our janitorial staff is off that day and Black Friday the next day, so I'll be opening up the church around 8 o'clock or so, and then we'll have Mass at 9, patriotic rosary afterwards, and then I'll be closing up the church, and then Black Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving. Sorry, such a millennial. We'll have normal 7 a.m. Mass, 7 a.m. opening of the building, confessions, and Mass as normal. We are going to do solemn vespers again for Advent, the 3 Fridays of Advent, and that'll be at 6 o'clock here in the church on those Fridays. It's a beautiful sung meditation of evening prayer, the Liturgy of the Hours. We had good turnout for that last Advent and Lent. The Solemnity of the Immaculate Conception, a holy day of obligation this year, is going to be on Wednesday, December 8th, but we'll do a vigil the night before on Tuesday, December 7th at 6 p.m., our normal 8 a.m. morning Mass, and then 6 p.m. Mass on the actual solemnity. Christmas is going to be crazy. Pray for your priests, all of us, not just me. Christmas is on a Saturday, which means Christmas Eve Masses are Friday, and those are really the heavy-duty ones. The shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy that I am, I'm going to do the morning confessions and Mass for the day, December 24th, and then that night we'll have 4, 7, and 10 Christmas Eve Masses. Bishop Sheridan's going to be here for one of those Masses. Thank goodness, he's been a great help. And then Christmas Day, we're just going to have the one morning Mass, 10 a.m. And with morning Masses on Christmas Day, we've got the space. We can make it happen in one Mass. Because that evening, 5:30, we're going to have our evening Mass, which also will be a Mass for the Nativity, but it's also kind of a Sunday Mass. It's a weird thing this year, and there's kind of confusion in the liturgy office of what this actually is meant to look like. But and then Sunday morning for the Holy Family, we'll have our normal 7, 9, and noon Sunday Mass times. I had originally been told that if you could only go to one Mass that weekend for some reason, you had to work or whatever, that Saturday evening Mass would go and it effectively would count. I was just recently told that that's not the case, that you should go to Mass on either Friday evening and or Saturday morning, and then Saturday evening and or Sunday morning. So Christmas and Holy Family. So much church, 2 days in a row. I go every day, as somebody said, if you're too busy for a holy day of obligation, you're just too busy. You know, I have too many obligations for a holy day of obligation. So, no, it's, we'll have to communicate that to the parish because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of confusion. Inevitably, with like a Saturday afternoon wedding, always get the question, Father, does this count for Sunday? No. So, yeah, Christmas is going to be pretty intense. And then the octave, Monday through Friday, we'll have a regular confession and Mass schedule. And then we're going to do something similar, not as intense, the following Friday and Saturday with the Solemnity of Mary, Mother of God. So the 6 p.m. Vigil Mass and then the 9 a.m. Saturday daily Mass. So that puts us at an hour and 14 minutes. Actually, technically an hour and 10 minutes because we started late. Questions? Or tell you what, if you want to get up and go to the bathroom, if you just want to go home, please feel free. And then I'll stick around to answer your questions for as long as you have them. Okay? Yes?
Will you be blessing food on Thanksgiving Day?
Will I be blessing food on Thanksgiving Day? Sure. You bring it, I'll bless it. Yeah. I know we haven't had anybody bring food in the last few years, or at least I didn't see. I know they had set up tables, but I never saw things on the tables. So, yeah, if people bring food, I'll bless it. I may have to sample it, but no, I won't do that. COVID, no. Question? Oh, no. Well, as always, if you do have questions, feel free to let me know. I may not be able to respond right away, but I do really, communication I've found is so important. And I want you to know that you can ask me for things. Most importantly, the sacraments. Please, if you know somebody that needs anointing of the sick, call me. I will go. If they're from another parish, call their pastor. That's their job. But if it's our parishioner, somebody that is homebound, somebody that, at our Catholic hospitals, Monday through Friday, we do have Catholic chaplains there. And so I don't necessarily need to be the one to go and offer them anointing of the sick. I'm glad to know that they're there. But if we do have Catholic chaplains there during basically business hours, Monday through Friday. And so if we know of anybody that is at a hospital, make sure they get on that list to have the chaplain come and visit them, anointing of the sick, get on the communion list. They'll be taken care of. After hours, we have a whole pager system for the priests in the area. But otherwise, seriously, if somebody needs the sacraments, that's my most important thing as a priest. I will make time for that. And I will cancel something else gladly. Trust me. But otherwise, I might have a backlog, but I really do want to be available as available as possible. It just might not look like what we would all like it to look like. Yes?
So the library has been doing coffee and pastries, every Sunday. So since you're doing the first Sunday, should we not do it on the first Sundays?
We could combine efforts, maybe. Yeah, so the question was, library does coffee and donuts every Sunday after Mass, which is an awesome thing, awesome service. On first Sundays, we should talk about that. That was not something I don't think that we really considered, to be completely honest. Not a snub. We're so trying to figure out everything. So maybe let's talk. If you all want to just pass it up to the parish council first Sundays, or if we want to combine efforts, have two. I'm sure there are plenty of kids who would like to have 2 donuts. So, we can find a good solution for that. Yes, Linda.
Is there a schedule for which apostles and ministries are going to be working?
So I've already said, per your email, I read it, I haven't responded to it yet. Yes, February will be perpetual adoration. It will be 5 years of perpetual adoration of Holy Apostles this February 11th. Huge. It's a gift. So yes, February is reserved already for perpetual adoration. January and December, I'm not sure if we've got designated ministries or apostolates yet. So have to talk to parish council about that. This is one of those things that I'm glad to sort of let them own and make real. All right. Well, once again, thank you for being here. If you have any questions that you're too shy to ask in front of everybody, I'll stick around for a little bit. But these faces are some of our most committed and active faces in the parish. So personally, thank you for what you do. Yeah, I've heard a priest say it before. He may lead a parish, but he doesn't run a parish. Yeah, you all make this place what it is. So thank you for that. It's hats off to you, and God bless your efforts. It's your parish, and we're all in this together. It's a real privilege to serve you and to lead in my own sort of weird ways, but I'm glad that we're able to really serve together, and that God's blessing our common efforts. So we'll close with prayer and ask Our Lady to really continue to help Christ to be born in our lives and in our parish, and to look after us in our needs. So let's pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Everybody have a good night. Drive safe home.